Right. Hey, welcome everybody. It's 7 o'clock. Sci-Fi Distilled. Welcome back. Hey, we already got 6 people watching. All right. Good.
Well, one of them's me. So
One of them's you.
hello. Oh, there's Chris. Hi, Bill. Hi, Martin. Hello,
Chris is
everyone.
here, and Bill's here, and Martin's here. Okay, guys. So this week we are kind of doing a twofold. The Time Machine 1960 and the Time Machine 2002. Now there was a 1978 made for movie
TV
version.
kind of yeah.
But
And I have a
we're not
link
gonna talk
for
about
that
that
if
one
you
really.
guys are interested.
Yeah, but which it was okay for 1978 TV.
Yeah.
But
yes, yeah, it was okay for TV. I mean,
yeah.
But last week when we signed off, we were both like, oh, pretty sure we're gonna like the 1960 version better, and someone has changed his mind. So
we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. So, but before we get into it, I'm sure you got news.
I got things to talk about. Things for us to all discuss together as a group, the way we do. First and foremost, tonight I have a very special birthday greeting to Philip Merkel. Captain Phil's son, Philip, is turning 25. Happy birthday to Philip. I hope you have a good day. It's tomorrow. I believe his birthday is tomorrow.
Yep. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. In sci-fi book news, Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End is going to be given its first ever illustrated edition. Do we need an illustrated edition? I feel like we can read those books okay without having like.
Yeah, I mean, you mean so it's like a graphic novel type?
I believe so. It just says first ever illustrated edition featuring an award-winning artist, Grace Aldrich. I don't know how that works exactly, but
it's just another medium. I mean, there's been several television or movies made of that story. So
yes.
Most recently, I think it was Sci-Fi Channel did a miniseries. Was pretty good. These things when you've read the book and then you go back and you see like a screenplay version of it, and I don't know what a comic version of it would be. They never hold up to the original, especially if you read the book first. You know what I'm saying? If you read the book first,
yeah.
You always say the book was better. The book was better.
That's true. But, honestly, with the kids the way they are nowadays, if this gets more kids to read these kind of, all his work, then more power to him. Knock yourselves out. Draw whatever you want. Yeah, let's move on. Tomorrow is 420, kids. Great day tomorrow. Don't forget the new Broken Lizard movie Quasi will be on Hulu. It's that one it's a Quasimodo one. It's gonna feel kind of Monty Python-esque. We can all go to Mars now, which is super exciting, right from our couch. Jay Dixon, who is an image processing scientist at the Bruce Murray Lab for Planetary Visualization at Caltech, has led a project to build a global mosaic of Mars. They did it by stitching together more than 110,000 images taken by NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Anyone can go look. I will put the link to that in the chat. I went to go look today, and for some reason, I don't know if it's just my laptop or what, it wouldn't load. Like the tools and all the stuff for the map were there, but the map itself wouldn't load. But you guys check it out. Maybe you will have better luck than me. I am not much into reality shows at all, or reality competition shows at all, but I am interested to see real world application of visual effects, and this show has some of that. NBC and BBC are joining forces to put out a new reality competition series entitled Destination X. And the gist of this thing is 10 people get on a bus. And it says the interior of the vehicle has been changed to mislead both the players and the audience. And so they're going to drive around and they're not going to know where they are. And then they have to figure out where they are. What I think is going to happen is I think instead of windows, obviously, there's going to be screens. And like whatever countryside will go by on the screens. But they could be driving in a city or something. I am always interested to see how visual effects work out, like what are real world applications of visual effects. So I don't know. I don't like game shows, but I might check this out just to see what they're doing with this.
Just keep in mind that with any of those shows, they're all.
I know it's all manipulated.
It's all set up. I don't care how reality they say it is. It's not. Okay, it's not.
But I want to see what they do with this bus.
Yeah, it's
And like, what if you get they have to have a bit of look out, otherwise people get motion sickness. Yeah, whatever. Moving on. The Mandalorian finale is waiting for me to go watch it in, I don't know, 55 minutes from now. And much to my great disappointment, it's being met with mixed reviews. Let us know. We're thinking about covering Mando next month, so let us know if you guys want to talk about it. It is not clear if this is a season finale or a series finale. I haven't seen it yet. There's this one teeny tiny non-spoiler. Giancarlo, I love the name Giancarlo. Giancarlo Esposito said he broke 5 dark sabers on set filming whatever it is that we're all about to see tonight. So it should be interesting. I'd like to discuss this season of Mando.
Okay. Well, we'll do that maybe May 3rd.
May 3rd, May 10th, somewhere in
or
there.
May 10th. I think, yeah, that's right. We say May 3, May 10th. After Star Wars Day.
I have Star Wars news.
Version.
Let's do all the Star Wars news. All kinds of Star Wars news. After the series finale tomorrow of Star Trek Picard, if you guys are interested, you can join executive producer Terry Matalas on Reddit for an AMA and Ask Me Anything. It will be, I'm lying to you, it's not tomorrow. My bad. It's Friday, April 21st at 10 a.m. Pacific. So for us on the East Coast, that'll be 1
o'clock.
Okay. If you want the Hand of Apollo ornament from Hallmark, where the green hand has the Star Enterprise, I will put that link in the chat for you. That is available now. Why not Christmas? I don't know, but whatever.
They always release. Yeah, they're a little early. Usually they release them in this early summer.
It's April.
I know. It's early. It's earlier than normal.
There's some other cool ones. Like
cash grab
cash grab. Even if you're not interested in that particular one, open the link. I'll put it in the chat. Open the link and just look at the other ones down below because there's some really cool ones. Trek Movie is reporting, and I don't know where they get their information. I don't know if this is right or not. Trek Movie is reporting that Paramount is developing a Galaxy Quest series. That could be fun. That could be cool. I might be down for that. Paramount dropped the teaser for Strange New Worlds Season 2. And I gotta admit, I'm kind of pumped. Like, it was actually, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready for this to come back. Like, I enjoyed the lightheartedness of that show. Yeah. I'll drop
it wasn't horrible.
It wasn't horrible.
It had things that could be better.
Definitely, they have their tongue planted in their cheek.
Like I said, it still had Kurtzman stink all over it.
It did. It did. But in the teaser, there's a shot where James Kirk, that guy who I don't remember the actor's name. I'm sorry, is struggling with a revolving door, and Chong, Sung character is like, you don't know how revolving doors work. He's like, I'm from space, and it was very, very it was very, very Shatner. I could see it. That could have happened in the one with the whales. It absolutely could have. It was funny.
Okay, well, that's June, I believe, right?
June 15th. I will drop that link. I have so many links to drop in the chat. And
there's going to be a big gap on Star Trek. A couple months and a half.
There's going to be a gap. And from what was I literally just saying 2 weeks ago news, Paramount has pulled the trigger and announced Star Trek Section 31 movie.
Right, yeah.
Did I not just say on this very program a couple weeks ago that they were going to move to movies and miniseries? That's what they're doing. Michelle put out a statement saying, I'm finally seeing JoJo get her moment. Shows the power of never giving up on your dreams. I don't know that Star Trek is really one of Michelle's dreams, but okay. She says, I can't wait to show you what's in store. Until then, live long and prosper, unless JoJo decrees otherwise. The release specifically mentioned JoJo would be facing the sins of her past. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I don't want to go back and rehash her being a mean emperor all over again. Like, can we just move forward from the time when she...
everything with Paramount / CBS, I have a very, very, very cautious opinion. It's just, I'm not getting excited because I've been disappointed too many times.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So we'll just see what it is.
It'll be what it is. I don't want to face any sins of any past. I want to move forward and go for it.
Yeah, they go back to the well. It's a Paramount CBS thing. We like the well. The wells.
Here's the thing. Yeah, they do. But see, the way, like, Metalis just did a whole bunch of fan service, and I was okay with it. But Disco brought the Guardian Forever, and I was like, It
You
just
have to
all
do. You see, the
depends
thing
on
is, fan service for fan service sake is not really the best. I mean, like the way they did it in Disco was terrible because it was just being stuck in there
yes, it
without
was
any real
wedged
thought.
in. Yeah,
Picard, of course, is being Picard this whole season, and we'll talk about it. Of course, is just
we will talk about it.
all fan service. I mean, the whole thing is just one. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's the story is okay, but that's really not
It was
why this
one
season
fan
is
service.
about.
It was like fan service bombs being dropped, but at least
Yeah,
each bomb moved the story forward. Like it
yeah.
just,
I
I don't know,
mean,
it worked somehow.
yeah. I don't know. We can talk
I don't know.
about it when we
We'll
get
talk about
to
it.
Picard.
And finally tonight, next week, or maybe it's actually technically this week, but I believe it's next week. Next week we mark our 3rd year. 3 years of doing this show. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, there he is, and thank you to those who've been here.
Thank you to all of you, everyone watching now. Thank each and every one of
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, it was. We never thought anybody would. I would
We
never
didn't see
thought
anyone
we
would watch.
doing
We were
this.
like, whatever. We'll
This
just do
all
it.
was a result of COVID. So
This was all a result.
something to do.
We won't have any special presentations or anything like that. But I will put up on Facebook some of our. I'm going to give you some best of options, and you can tell us what you think. Like, if you can tell us who do you think our best celebrity guest was, our best like recurring. You know, when
We
we
didn't have that many, so let's.
our recurring. Yeah, we don't have that many, so it's just a few to choose from. Our best recurring guests, any funny moments that you might remember, and where you want us to go from here, stuff like that. So look for that to go up on Facebook at some point between now and next Wednesday. Rizzo, what are we drinking as we cruise through
we are
time
drinking.
tonight?
We are the Time Traveler, of course. So you got your Jamaican rum, vodka, triple sec. It's probably lime juice, lemon juice, kind of sweet. A little simple syrup in there, sugar syrup, and lime for a garnish.
What does triple sec taste like again?
Triple sec is it's kind of citrusy.
Citrusy, yeah. All right.
So anyway, it might be a good one.
Might be good. Hi, Sue.
So anyway, all right. How do we want? You want to start with 1960, go chronological, or you want to start with 2000?
Or do you want to start? You want to do it main character, like Eloy by Eloy, Morlock by Morlock, actual machine versus machine.
Well, I think if we can start there. I mean, I think both props in both movies were brilliant. Clearly, the 2002 took a lot of elements from the 1960 version.
Yes.
And from the original H.G. Wells book, there wasn't a lot of description. There was something about that there was kind of these brass pipes, and so they took some of that. But a lot of the rest of it really came out of the 1960s. The designer and of course the George Powell, who was the director, his vision of what he felt the time machine. He was very into, like, as a kid, into tobogganing and sledding, and he felt that the time machine should be
that's right. It did. It looked like a sled, didn't it?
So that's how they designed it. And of course, clearly the 2002 version took a lot of elements with the spinning parts and everything. But I really like the 2002 recreation of it. Not only did it, I love the fact that it kind of was in this bubble once it was running, and the little legs would come up, and like the landing gear would come up. But I think I really liked about the 2002 version. Clearly, the 1961 was very Victorian.
Yes,
very Victorian. That very had that look to it. Whereas the 2002 was of that era, but more steampunk. It actually, I think, was driven by steam. There were some steam elements to it because it seemed to make that sound.
Yeah.
But the crystal, instead of you working in the crystal, which was in the 1960 was the control, the crystal was the whole discs that would spin. And I thought it was brilliant. Apparently, it was one of the most expensive prop ever built for a film up to that at that time.
I cannot believe
2002. That. It was pretty well. You remember the other thing I really liked about the newer one?
Did it do other things, or did all those wheels? Did the number wheels actually spin?
I don't know how functional everything was. I didn't see anything on that. I'm sure it's out there. But the fact that, like, it made more sense to me on that version for the era that it was supposed to be built, where the numbers were on wheels and it would spin, rather than a screen that they did the stop action the way they did in 1960. Again, I'm not taking anything away from the 1961. I just think they did a really brilliant job on the 2002 version.
It was cool. I completely agree. The 1960 was iconic. Even people who
clearly iconic. Most people
know what it is.
Right.
It's like seeing the TARDIS.
It went through it, and it went through such a its time where, when it was, of course, it was housed at MGM's prop house for quite a while, until about the 70s. It went up for auction, was auctioned off, I think, for about $10,000. I think it went for, and the guy who bought it, took it on like a road show with he bought like the submarine from the movie Atlantis, I guess,
Yeah.
and took it on some kind of like road show thing where you'd kind of pay, I don't know. And then it kind of, I guess he was in financial straits and he sold it to somebody, and it kind of got lost to time for a while. Like nobody knew where it was.
How
And
appropriate.
ironically, it showed up in a thrift shop somewhere in California, I believe. And of course, the guys that were originally dealing with it went and found it, and it was in very poor shape. The chair was missing. Apparently, the second guy that bought it sold the chair to somebody that thought it was a real barber's chair, because that's what it was modeled after. The chair itself was modeled after a barber's chair, but it was never actually a barber's chair. It was something they built. So anyway, some idiot bought a barber's chair that wasn't a barber's chair. That's actually probably worth more, whoever has it, if it still exists anywhere. So they eventually restored it. Which one of the people who restored it, Rhodes, was DC Fontana. Dorothy Fontana was working on that one.
All right.
Yeah, and I think even David Gerrold had something to do with it.
He probably did, yeah. And I do have to just super quick shout out. If you've seen the Big Bang episode, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. The boys in Big Bang Theory, the boys get hold of it somehow.
I'm pretty sure that's not the original one.
I don't know if it is or not.
Replica.
The scene was so cute. Like, do you guys remember the scene? I think it's Sheldon sitting in the chair, and the boys around him start doing things like really, really fast, as if time has sped up. And it's the cutest thing.
Right. So they did a lot of brilliant things in the 1960 version. Of course, the way a lot of that was stop action. When you saw the candle, that wasn't just time lapse. That was actually stop action.
They did that. They did paint it. They would shift
the painting is what. Yeah, when they saw the apple tree grow, the flowers, that was all paintings that they did. The guy would just. He would literally. They said they locked the camera down, and the guy would paint, and then they take their shots, and then he'd paint some more, and he just kept painting.
And they paint a little bigger apple.
I mean, it's really brilliant. It's really done especially when you consider it's 1960. It was really done really well. Even like I think they said the light was just the sun going by was just a light on a track that they would move across, the window. But they did very simple things that we triggered as time passing.
Absolutely. The budget for that movie was less than $1 million, but it was
I think they only spent $750,000 on it.
$250,000, something like that.
It was very cheap.
It's gross. Whoops, that's 2002. Wrong one. Go to the right one. It grossed over the years something like, it grossed at the time 2.6, but since it's grossed millions more. So yeah, it just genius. It was genius for what it was for 1960. It was.
And then of course him watching the fashion change
and watching the fashion change.
They originally were going to bring that all the way into a very modern era where she's kind of like in this George Jetson sort of looking outfit, but that never made it. They only got to the 1960s, which you think, okay, that was a great vehicle for showing how time was passing, but we all know that probably that mannequin would have been changed.
Yeah, the mannequin itself, but still.
It wouldn't always be in the exact same spot for like 50 years.
It made its point.
But it was a good effect, and it got the point across. And I think that was.
And they did a really good job, actually, in both movies, when he'd go back to his lab and it would be like dusty and, you could tell time had passed. That's a good, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys know the story. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but of course, it's each movie though kind of tells the story a little different. The 1961 is a little bit more telling the story about it's not as action oriented like with that, right? As the 2002 had different, which we get because our audiences of that era, even 2002, remember, is over 20 years ago now. Yeah. That's what sells action movies.
Sure,
and if they had made it more cerebral, not that the 1960 one I felt was so cerebral. The obvious, it was pretty obvious the message that they were trying to tell.
Yes.
The one thing I did like about the 2002 version is what they brought into it as far as a message, aside from there's a class system and kind of all that, was the fact that time can't be changed, or at least in their opinion, that because remember the whole point. He's
the beginning
the
scene.
difference
The
is that
scene,
he builds the time machine. The Guy Pearce version builds the time machine because his girlfriend gets
his girlfriend dies
and dies, and his fiance was just proposed to her, and he builds this thing so he can go back and stop her from dying, and then which we have a whole scene where he does stop her from getting shot and avoiding that whole incident, but then she gets hit by a car, steam driven. So he realizes, which they could have taken that farther and had him do like multiple times until he finally got the message.
Yes,
but I think they didn't decide whether it was budgetary reasons or they just decided it wasn't necessary. He gets it after the first time. That's when she dies the second time. That he can't change time. It'll always right itself, which is kind of a theory that will it if you could would a paradox eventually somehow correct itself. So that's why, and then of course he ends up just traveling to see what's forward, and runs into. Now I love the difference. Of course, in 1960, what's everybody worried about is nuclear war. So of course that's the apocalypse that does man in. In the 2002 version, it's the man blew up the moon by accident. They were trying to blow up. They were trying to blast nuclear. They did say they were using atomic.
Yeah. They
bombs
were
to blow. They basically
right?
it was like a resort inside the moon.
They were excavating for
it was for a resort or something,
and condos or something.
And it went horribly wrong, and it blew up, and you had this kind of Thundar the Barbarian.
Yes.
Thing going on. Which he sees, it's kind of cool because when he gets to 80,000, whatever, where he stopped, he looks up and you can see now the moon has all the debris.
It has kind of
out almost into a ring, which is kind of neat. I like that idea that they didn't go down the nuclear war path.
I agree.
And came up with a different reason, more of an environmental. It was still man's fault.
Yeah.
That happened because of our arrogance and stuff. The other thing I really want to talk about the 2002 one, which was my favorite, really my favorite character is Vox, which is Orlando Jones, who is he's the AI in the museum. I assume he's like in the museum, New York Museum of History or Natural History or wherever he is. And he of course meets him in modern day, so to speak, 2032 or something like that. I think he finds himself. So he has this conversation with him, and ultimately 800,000 years or whatever it is later, he's still there.
Yeah.
What's left of him. And there's that great scene where he's like, where you can kind of see Vox's character kind of think inwardly. He's like, I remember everything. I remember the 6-year-old girl that asked me about dinosaurs. I remember you.
Yeah.
You want to know about time travel. That was just great. I love that scene. I really thought that was a brilliant scene.
It was brilliant. It was really great. And I really Vox is there for exposition, but I thought it was brilliant exposition as compared to the ring. You guys remember in the 1960 version, they would spin those rings and it was like a recording, I guess. Yeah, it must have been a recording.
Yeah, it was a recording.
The voice would talk. And so I actually really like the Vox. If you need some exposition, I'll go the Vox route any day.
Yeah, those are put in there just exactly for the audience to explain what happened.
Yeah.
In the book, those things never happened. In the book, it was just the time traveler. Yeah. He was just making kind of a pop hypothesis about what he felt happened by what he was seeing, and because it was all kind of third person, him talking to the reader.
Vox and the rings were just exposition, but they were fantastic exposition. I thought.
And there's a great scene where he's talking to him because he asks him, "I want to know about time travel."
And he's like, "Oh,"
and he goes, "Oh, what?" And he mentions the H.G. Wells book and everything like that. And he goes, "There were so many versions of the story, and there was the musical by Rodgers and Hammerstein or whatever it was."
Yeah,
he starts singing.
He starts singing versions of songs.
None of that exists. I literally had to look up the Time Machine, the musical, because I was almost. Was there one?
Yeah, is there a Time Machine musical?
And the first thing that comes up was there is not. It was false. It was just made up for the film.
Funny.
So, and of course, Orlando Jones is a comedian to begin with. So, of course, he starts singing a song from this thing, and of course, it's like he's on these like glass panels, sort of thing, and he's on all of them singing, and he's like, "Stop!" No practical application.
And then did you catch
there's
him?
the
He's
name.
like at the end when Alex leaves, he's like, "Live long and prosper." It was cute. The only thing, and I was joking about this before we started the show. The only thing about Vox, as clever as an idea as he is, what was his power source?
Yeah, well, I mean, what was the power source of the rings?
But you
They
spun it.
clearly
Power
had to have
source
some,
of the
because when he
rings was
spun it,
probably
a light
kinetic. It was
came
probably
on.
kinetic. You know what I mean? Like, you
Well, no,
spun
but there's like a light that shone down on it when he
it.
spun it, and it followed it around.
Good
So,
point.
it could have been, who knows, solar batteries, fusion, fission, something. Who knows?
Yeah. Anyway,
know.
I agree
It's
with
not
everything.
important at this point what the power source was. You're right. It probably
Yeah.
wouldn't still work
It
at
wouldn't
that
matter.
long a time.
And maybe he was solar. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is. But anyway,
That's right,
I
Martin.
agree
They
with.
are doing a musical for Back to the Future.
Oh, great. That's good.
So here's the question. We've
Yeah.
talked about the time machines,
Yes.
but how does it compare to the DeLorean?
If you're gonna build a time machine, the DeLorean.
I gotta say the DeLorean beats them both.
I gotta say, yeah, DeLorean probably beats them both.
The DeLorean was brilliant, and I always said, if you're gonna make it, if I know it moves in space, but or in time, you got to make it move in space too.
But if it's time in relative dimension of space, suddenly it's a TARDIS.
Well, now it's a TARDIS, but that's different. That's completely right. But it has to move. It has to move within space as well as time.
Hey, if you're gonna go, you may as well go. I mean, yeah.
Well, because you figure if he's in one, what happens if when he stops, it's solid rock, like it did, and then he would be
in the '60s version, wasn't he covered in lava?
He was covered, but you assume that the time bubble was protecting him at that point.
Theoretically,
I don't know.
Whatever.
But or if a mountain grew up, like if he was on top of a mountain and the mountain eroded, he would be.
I guess he didn't understand what I was seeing in 2002, because I thought I saw an ice age happen in there, but maybe I didn't. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it moved pretty quick, but I mean, yeah, the Hot Tub Time Machine, that was a good movie. Funny. Hot Tub Time Machine was funny.
Martin Ben, which 3 books would you take? Because we'll everybody ruminate on that for a minute. I just want to say, Rizzo, I agree with you. Like I said last week, we were pretty sure we would like 1960 better. This week we're both like, hey, there is something to 2002.
Well, again, 1960 is a great film. I don't want to take anything away from 1960 film, but we have to put it in its context. First of all, it is. How old is it now? Gosh, it's 60, 62, 63 years old. And so it's definitely a product of its era.
Sure.
Eloy are very Aryan, white, blonde, blue, kind of, that there's no segregation in there. Yeah, it was very, they were. And I felt the 2002 Eloy were a little bit more believable.
At least they were a little on the ball. They were smarter, and they were
definitely more believable, I think. And I don't, I did like in the 1960s that they used the air raid siren.
Yeah, I actually kind of that.
It was very.
I like that because it drove the theme home. It drove the themes home.
Right.
If you go back to the book and you go back to the 1960, what H.G. Wells was trying to say about class, like the themes of the book, were go down past the news, Mary Beth, were about inequality in social classes and like human and like technology and progress, and then lay that on. So I feel like those themes were driven home a little bit more clearly in the 1960s version, particularly with the Eloy and the Morlock. I thought that was so much clearer. Technology and progress versus nature, and fear versus kindness, social classes, all of that's driven home a little bit more clearly in the 1960s than it is in 2002. But both movies are.
Well, I mean, it was in the 1960s version too. It was more like it was cattle and farmer, because the Morlocks were providing all the food, the clothing,
but
everything for them, so that. But you notice you never note one thing you didn't see, which didn't make any sense, was children. If they were replenishing the stock, there had to be people making babies.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Therefore, what happened to
the thing about the Eloy is we not
only children.
That was actually kind of weird. They were so complacent as to not care. She was ostensibly drowning.
Yeah, nobody was even bothering to lift.
Although you do see her swim at one point, but that's not the point. She's ostensibly drowning, and they're just sitting there on the rocks looking at her. Like that's how just
right, because they're basically sheep.
Yeah, because
I'm saying even sheep have to breed, but we didn't see the children.
Yeah.
Because at least in 2002, they had a culture. They
At
were
least they were kids. Yeah.
they were closer
This
along
was-
to what
and
to Native
that
American.
was that young lady, that
You know,
actress
of
in
that
real
kind of
life
they were
brother,
they
right?
seemed tribal or whatever. They had made some
Maybe not.
progress. They lived. I don't know why they decided to live on the side of a cliff, but
Yeah, that part's a little weird.
it was weird. But it was visually interesting for nothing else. But I also think it made more sense that they wouldn't. You know, again, they had more heads on their shoulders. They were not going to just walk into the Morlock cave, so to speak, and become slaughtered. Although they didn't know what happened to anybody, they just knew that they didn't come back.
Well, you know,
But they were captured. They didn't just walk in. They were these, and they kind of explain it that the Morlocks had a caste system. It wasn't just
yeah,
they
the
were all the
Morlocks
same.
were a
There was the
little
ones,
more.
the hunters that could go
Yeah.
outside in the daylight, and then there's the
What was
Uber
the kid's
Morlock, which we
name?
only saw one of, which was Jeremy Irons' character.
Oh, it is his. Okay, yeah. Sorry, Mara, the young lady he meets in 2002, the
Yeah.
Guy Pearce version. He meets a young woman named Mara. That's her real life brother playing her real life.
Yeah, and what they did is they took Weena and split it into two people.
They did two people.
Mara
Yeah.
and the little brother, and so you had the kind of the same person in split into into those two characters.
And admittedly, the character was changed quite a bit from the book. In the book, it was more of a father-daughter relationship. In both 1960 and 2002, that's a little bit more of a romantic relationship.
Oh, clearly romantic.
Not
in both
important.
of them.
Not
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, so it was just little changes. Like I said, the changes they made between the two films, I don't think were anything that like, oh, that just made it so much worse or so much better. I think they were both fine in their own right.
It depends on what you want out of your H.G. Wells. Some
True.
people read H.G. Wells for his themes, and the points he's making, and some people just read him for his adventure. I mean, he cranked out 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. He cranked out War of the Worlds.
And you got to think, this is the first, by the way, when he wrote that, this was the first time we saw time travel.
Yeah, with
by
a
a
machine.
machine.
Yes. Previously to this, it was you could dream about it or you could pretend.
Right, but it was the first time somebody conceived of a machine that would take you forward or backward in time.
This book was actually groundbreaking for its day being 1895. The concepts and the stuff that the ideas he puts forward in this book in 1895, which some of it's still applicable today in 2023.
Yeah. I know. I think H.G. Wells was the time traveler.
Maybe H.G. Wells.
Sometimes he seemed to be way ahead.
In the 1960s
yes,
version, the character's name was George Wells.
Correct.
Martin's
just asking if Jules Verne did.
Oh, Jules Verne. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I moved,
Jules Verne did 20,000.
Sorry, my bad. Hang on. There was another book. Did he do some kind of underwater book? Did H.G. Wells do underwater books?
I don't know.
War of the Worlds, Invisible Man, Island of Dr. Moreau. No, wait. Sorry. I've gone rogue. Hang on.
He wrote a lot of cool stuff.
He wrote a lot of great books that we shall be reading. Where's the bibliography for this guy?
It's funny thing in the 2002 movie, if you look in the lab, you'll see a couple of pictures of actual H.G. Wells. And we did mention that it was the grandson, right?
No, we didn't. Please tell everyone
about that. It was H.G. Wells' great grandson that actually directed the 2002 film, which was kind of really cool. I think that gives it a plenty of street cred on its own. It's Simon Wells, and actually he had to take a few weeks off because he was suffering from exhaustion from working on this film, and had somebody else fill in for a few weeks. But yeah, I mean the fact that his great grandson directed this is kind of, I don't know. I think that cool. It just gives it some. I know he has no direct connection probably to his great grandfather as far as any inside knowledge. I'm sure he probably never met his great grandfather. Most of us don't. I mean, I was lucky enough to I have a very, very brief, slight memory of my great grandfather. Just basically one particular time, but so I doubt it has anything to do with it. But the fact that it's in the family legacy is pretty cool.
Oh, let me put those links. Keep going. I need to put the links up that I promised everyone.
You should put the links up. I'm just reading some of the comments.
Talked about half an hour ago.
Yeah. So, so what else? So I feel like we've been focusing a lot on 2002 and less on 19. Well, I guess not so much, but what else can we say? The 1960 version. No, one thing we were talking about before the show is tell us, see if you guys agree with this. Rod Taylor kind of looks like who do we say look like? I'm already drawing a blank.
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams. we both agree that you think it's in the chin and the eyes. We think he does look.
That that is an Australian actor.
Well, Robin Williams looks like Rod Taylor. I guess you could look at it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an Australian actor. He's a little more unknown. They were looking at a couple big names for the parts, but then they decided to go with, more unknowns because they wanted to pour money, even back then, even in 1960, they wanted to pour money into the effects. So, hey, it seemed to have worked. I think the effects are classic, and I kind of think they hold. I mean, you're right. They look dated and cheesy, and yet they still kind of hold up.
They look, for the era, they look really good. I mean, yes, by today's standards, of course not. But I mean, we're talking how long? I mean, but I still think the stop action animation looked really good for any of the time travel stuff. The miniatures they did when after the bombs had dropped and the lava started to flow through the city. I mean, it was clearly a model, but it looked pretty good.
A couple of the city, some of the destruction was it was like toys being destroyed.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of very
Godzilla-like. You got the gist, right?
But again, I mean we're talking 62 years ago, so 53 years ago. So I mean we can't expect. And it was only $758,000 to make the film or whatever it was. So we can't.
By contrast, 2002 looks great to this day. I think we need to talk about the Jeremy Irons character because that is something that 2002 had that 1960 did.
Right, the Uber Morlock. Right, because he actually explains. He again is kind of another he's explaining some of the things that happened and why they happened. And he, of course, the other thing he has is this mental ability. He has like telekinesis.
Yeah, he's kind of psychically.
So, but did you notice there was a couple of they did again some parallels, like when they have the big battle with the Uber Morlock, and then the battle that Rod Taylor had with his Morlock. Remember, he eventually hits him, and he at the end and he knocks him out, and then he goes forward in time, and you see him fall apart. Yes, they kind of does the same thing. We see that similar thing happen in 2002. Where the time machine's running, they're both in the time machine while it's running, and he kind of eventually kicks him out, and the only thing he's holding on is by his arm, and of course, the hand that's within the field is staying normal, but the rest of him ages and dies very quickly.
Seems like anything that goes outside the bubble should be dead.
Yeah, well, he did.
Or knocked off or something.
Yeah, because it would think, but it was a cool effect anyway.
Yeah. Well,
it's like in the 2002 version, he's going through time and he drops his the necklace, the locket or whatever with the picture of his girlfriend, and he stops and he watches it eventually disintegrate or whatever.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just stop? You could just back up.
You just stop. Yeah, you're in a time machine. you
stop, pick it up, go forward again.
While I am thinking of it and putting links up, I'm going to put a link up to something Chris LaRoche was kind enough to remind us and tell us about. There is a little known mini sequel. It's called to this.
It's not really, to be clear, it's more of a documentary on
kind
the
of documentary, yeah.
It's little within it. There is a small scene at the end.
Yeah, there's like little skits,
where George Wells, or Rod Taylor's character, goes back to his lab, but he's now older, of course, whatever he was when it was made. I think it's like 1992, 93. And he meets David Philby again, who's just about to go off to war.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, he finds out from his son that he dies in World War I in a plane crash on the shores of France. So he gets there just shortly before he's going to leave for France to try to get him to come back to the future with him. And of course, there's like a scene with the two of them, and it's really neat. And of course, he doesn't go. But you say he's gonna try. He says, "I'm gonna try again." So that's because he got a time machine.
Time machine.
So it was an interesting scene. It was interesting hearing those two guys talk about doing that scene and how they really hadn't seen each other in the 30 years prior to that. And it was just like going home, like they just clicked right into their characters, and it felt like they were back on the set of MGM making the film. Apparently, this was Rod Taylor, according to at least what he said. This was a pretty impactful film for him. He's always is like one of his favorites to always remember, and he always,
yeah, because this kind of catapulted him.
For the Time Machine.
Yeah, like I said, he was kind of unknown, and this got him work. So I want to thank Chris LaRoche for reminding us about that, and I want to thank Chris Rousseau for coming up with that link.
Yeah, so you can rent that on Amazon for a couple bucks. It's worth it if you're interested. It's worth $2 to watch it. I did that this afternoon. There's a lot of good information about pretty much a lot of stuff we've talked about already in there. Stuff you didn't know about. In fact, I didn't know about how the Time Machine itself, the prop itself, had gone through so many. And it was sad. The small one.
Oh yeah,
they had. Remember the one that the experimental one that he sent forward in time. That of course was lost to time because it's just endlessly traveling with a cigar at its helm.
Bill Sotek was
that one. Yeah, George took that home. That was his souvenir, George Powell. And apparently there was a big fire, I guess, in the area or something. It was like a forest fire anyway, and his house burnt, and he lost that among other things. So that was lost to time. Unfortunately, it was destroyed. But it did spark a lot of people to build. I guess there was a lot of people building models of this. Somebody built one about the size of a fly.
Oh,
the little tiniest. Like somebody said, somebody built one about yay big. And I think it was, I don't know, it was the guy that the production people said, oh, you can never build one any smaller than that. And so the person said, oh, yeah. And they built one that literally was the size of a housefly. I don't know how they could build something that small, but
the 1960s one is a classic look. It looks cool.
Yeah, and there was a lot of cool things about it. Like if you notice, like on the dish, there was like all these like little bumps or dots.
Yes.
There was 365 of those.
Oh, really?
One for each day of the year. So that was kind of a thing that they did. So stuff like that I thought was pretty cool that they added in there. Of course, everybody thinks that, the control didn't actually control the wheel, the disc. That was all done off camera to
the spinning part.
Yeah, in fact, it was mentioned that was used in Cosmos, the TV show Cosmos with Billions and Billions there. What's his name?
I know who you mean.
The guy did Cosmos. Why? Carl Sagan. Apparently, Carl Sagan loved the thing so much because it was like up on a pedestal, like this high pedestal, and he would just sit there all the time, like he wouldn't get out.
Really?
Take a break. Like he thought it was very comfortable, so he just stayed in it.
Oh, that's funny.
Apparently, it got pretty damaged on that show, though. I guess even though the prop people, they were told you can't, you have to pick it up by its base because it's a prop. And I guess one of the prop people didn't listen and grabbed the brass bars and tore the wiring all out of it and everything. It took hours to repair. And
we've learned that lesson at the set tour.
Yeah, you got to remember that. Yeah, it's the people. It's like one thing you learn is things are props, not
things are props. It's not real. They're
not real. Carl said,
yeah. So if everyone's had to think about it, what 3 books? Because you remember in did they do it in the 2002 version?
No, because in the 2002 version, he never comes back.
Yeah, he never went back.
Because he uses the Time Machine to blow up the Morlocks.
He pops back and he grabs 3 books, and they never say what 3.
They never say what 3 books, and that was one of the things that Philby says is, "What 3 books would you take?" So, what 3 books would you take, Mary Beth?
Oh, probably some kind of medical. So
first aid book and a
there's no doctors or hospitals, it looks like, in the future.
Yeah, but that's how that would only do you so much good. I would think basic first aid would be
some kind of homesteading book, like how to grow every single plant and how to keep chickens and all that crap.
Farming, animal husbandry,
sure. How to graft trees and crap together so you can grow blueberries on your cherry tree or whatever the hell they do nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the practical thing. Something about,
Well, what would I bring? What would I just bring? I mean, I don't know. I'd probably grab a couple Star Trek books. I don't know. I really need to think about that.
Well, it's the old adage, if you're stuck on a deserted
on a
island,
desert
what
island,
would you
Yeah. Yeah.
what would you bring? Yeah, I mean, the practical thing would be grab books but one would assume that the rings
Yeah,
there
you
was
would
more
assume
than
the rings
just
had information.
basic, there
I'm
would be
guessing
more.
Orlando Jones had
Certainly,
information.
well, we saw that in the 2002 version because we see that when he does go,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
He's got Vok. They take one of his little panels and they put it
yeah.
out
And the kids
outside,
he's
and he's
telling stories.
teaching, he's reading,
So
or
maybe Vox. So if we
well,
had
it was
Vox,
Huckleberry Finn is what he's
yeah,
reading.
he's reading Huckleberry Finn. That's right.
So that was the nice thing about the 2002 version is that all that knowledge of man wasn't lost because Vox has it all in his head. He knows everything.
So let's assume we have a Vox to take care of things like homesteading and how to grow plants, how to keep chickens, and basic medical knowledge.
Well, you wouldn't need any books because he has them all in his head.
Well, you wouldn't need any books if he had them all. Yeah. So, but would I bring a book? I'm just trying to. We had a book episode and I had all my books here. I don't know. I
don't think it's important. I think the point is that we always wonder what he would have taken.
Yeah.
I always felt he would probably take something, some kind of science book, but I've also felt that he took some piece of classic literature. At least, that's what he would have taken. But
yeah,
that would be that's what I felt he took. That wasn't
probably War of the Worlds and The Invisible Man, or The Island of Dr. Moreau, which was the other H.G. Wells books. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you bring some Dickens? Do you bring some, do you want something with heavy morality? War of the Worlds? I mean, where do you want?
I don't know. It's 3 books. To me, it really wouldn't matter because you'd be, no matter how great a book it was, you would be sick of it pretty quick.
One, yeah.
I mean,
so that's
how
right.
many times could you
reread that you can reread and reread?
How many times could you reread the same book, even if it's a great book? So I don't know.
An anthology, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, right, Bill. So same. What music would you bring? With you if you could only bring a few songs. Again, I don't think if you're limited to such a few, it really wouldn't matter because you would be tired of it very quickly.
It would make more sense to learn how to play an instrument so that you could play. You'd have the songs in your head and just play.
There you go. Bring an instrument.
Remember that song we used to hear on the radio?
Yeah, there's no radio. There's no.
That's what I'm saying. But
clearly there's not power, at least not.
Blah, blah, blah. But now, luckily, I know how to play blah blah blah.
There you go. So.
Moby
anyway,
Dick.
So yeah, we don't know. It's again they purposely left that. They left that ambiguous to the viewers to come up with what they would think that he brought with him. Like I said, in 2002, he never went back.
They left that part out.
The only thing they did was they did that parallel scene at the end where you have his friend.
Yes, they did. Yeah, that was kind of cool.
And they're walking and they're kind of walking in the same space and saying, well, hopefully he's somewhere happy, whatever.
Yeah.
And he is. He's found his thing. Now, interesting that's David Philby of the 2002 version, and that's played by Mark Addy. And Mark Addy, we've seen him in a lot of stuff, but most people in this group would recognize him from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
So, but he was also in The Full Monty, which is hysterical. If you've never seen that movie, you got to go.
Mark Addy's been in a bunch of stuff.
So he's
So we were mentioning roads. So DC Fontana was our one road, and in not a lot of.
No, it's not our one road.
Huh?
Because you also have what's his name there.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. Not a lot of roads in 2002. At least nothing that jumped out at me. Unless I missed something, and I may have missed something because I don't always get everything.
No, there wasn't anybody obvious.
Yeah, in 1960 we had, and let me get his name because I've forgotten his name twice already. This poor man. His name is Whit Bissell. Whit Bissell. He in the movie he played Walter Kemp. In The Trouble with Tribbles he played Lurie.
Commissioner.
He also played in the 1978 TV movie, which I have a link to if you guys want. It's on YouTube. And I'm not going to link it. Just go on YouTube and put it in the search bar. The 1978 TV movie Time Machine. And Whit Bissell also did Time Tunnel.
Right.
And then also Jim Danforth.
Interesting enough, before you jump off of him, he's in this Return, the one we were just talking about, that they do the scene with Philby. He's actually narrating what happened, that George came back to try to get Philby to go to. So he's there. He's narrating it as if in that character. Walter. Anyway, good. Okay. Sorry, just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I'm done. That's all I got. We got a ton of behind the scenes. So from the 2002 one to the contemporary modern Star Trek, tons of behind the scenes work. As always, there's always a minimum, but I don't list them. I feel bad. I should be giving them the credit they're due. But we'd be sitting here for like 20 extra minutes every night while I rattled off like 97 VFX guys.
That's right. Doug Jones was in the 2002 version.
Oh,
I knew that was the other one I was trying to think of.
For you, Doug Jones. That's right.
I was memorizing. I said, "There's another connection." I can't remember. I remember seeing it in the credits.
He was a Morlock. In true Doug Jones fashion, I'm sure he was covered with 9 tons of special effects, makeup, and stuff, playing a Morlock.
Right, and like I said, in 2002 they had like 3 versions of Morlocks.
Yeah, I know.
They had the ones that could go out in the daylight, and they were the hunters, and then they had the workers that worked inside, to do whatever.
Yeah,
and then there were just a few of the Uber Morlocks that were the ones.
And then there was Jeremy Irons
worked on their brain.
It's a weird spine, like with a weird.
Yeah, he had like this weird spine sticking out.
Spine situation going on back there.
Yeah, he was kind of scary. Yeah. Played effectively by Jeremy Irons, who usually plays kind of a creepy dude.
Yeah, he plays a lot of meanies and creepies.
Yeah, so it worked for him. Yeah.
You go, Jeremy Irons. Well, all right, kids. What do you think?
Sebastian Cabot, wasn't he like the butler on The Courtship of Eddie's Father?
Maybe. That's very possible.
Now I got to look that up.
Sebastian Cabot. He looks like him, doesn't he? He does.
If it's not him, he darn well looks like it.
What year are we looking
My Three Sons. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
No, Family Affair.
Family Affair. That's what I'm thinking of.
That's what you're thinking of, Family Affair.
He was also apparently in, what did I just say? Some of those old TV shows, 1920s stuff.
Rowan and Martin's laughing.
Everybody was in that show, I think, at some
point. The whole
point.
world was in that show. We need to cover that show on this show. The Time Machine.
He was the narrator of Magical World of Disney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Family Affair. You're right. That was one.
Gunsmoke. Oh my God, he did a bunch. Gunsmoke, Three Musketeers, Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
He was also the narrator for Winnie the Pooh.
Good Lord, he started in 1935. My God, man. All right, kids, what do you think? Do you have any preferences, 1960 or 2002?
Yeah, so I don't know, you guys. I know you're all going to say 1960 because it's this crowd. But a lot of our love for these older films comes because they were the first ones we saw. It's like I've always said about when people say whatever version of Star Trek is their favorite, it's because that's the one that introduced them to the genre or to the franchise. So
and that's okay.
I think we definitely hold a certain place in our heart for the original. We always will. But and I'm not taking anything away. I'm not saying really one is necessarily that much better or worse than the other. But I just think that the 2002 one deserves probably more credit than it's getting. When I rewatched it, I really enjoyed it. I watched it because I didn't feel like I had to watch it. You know what I'm saying? I was enjoying it. I'm like, this was actually pretty good. I thought it was really done well. And I think they took enough elements. And clearly, it's certainly an homage to the 1961. They took enough stuff from the 1961 that they were clearly trying to put justice.
Bill has a fantastic question. It has been 21 years now. Is it due for another remake?
No, I don't think it needs. Well, I mean, that doesn't mean they won't make one. I think the 2002 is modern enough with effects. The effects certainly hold up by today. I didn't see anything that went, ooh, that's ugly.
Jeff didn't like Guy Pearce himself. I was okay.
Really? I thought he was all right. He did a lot of his own stuff. I
watched it first, but he kind of grew into the role.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a problem with him. But, whatever. I like the take on it, though, that he was trying to, originally the idea was he was trying to save his girlfriend, his fiance rather, and he comes to the conclusion that time
You
is
can't
is
change
is a, is a given. It can't be changed. You can bend it a little bit, but you cannot change it. Which is something that the opposite they basically say in the 1960s, that you can change time, you
Yes.
can change things. So there's
Although
kind of that difference
interestingly,
there.
that same concept, you can't change the past. We just talked about it last week in 12 Monkeys.
Right, that it'll always end up writing itself.
Mhm.
That's always been kind of an also a thing. In this, the book is interesting enough because it did kick off the whole time travel kind of trope or vehicle for
Mhm.
storytelling.
Sure.
Um,
And then it got used in abuse.
it got used like most anything else, but it's interesting that that this film got made, and of course it was a time of spaceships. So it was an interesting take that they made this film in 1960 when you had a lot of films like Forbidden Planet and all these space moon type things,
Yeah.
going on. And they did this Victorian time machine version, so it was kind of interesting that they decided to do this film, but it was successful. And of course it's beloved and always, should be.
It is beloved and it
Should
should
it
be.
be remade again? Probably not. I don't know.
I feel
I
like,
don't see how you're going to do it any better than how it's been done.
well, I mean, yeah, we can't. This is one of those rare occasions where we really can't go back and make it exactly like the book, because the book was a lot of exposition and heavy commentary, and
Right.
there was deliberate vagary in the book. Like the ending is deliberately vague so you can draw your own conclusions. We cannot make it exactly like that.
No, I don't think we want it. Wouldn't fit by
We wouldn't
today's,
want-
like you
yeah,
said,
it
today
would-
moviegoer wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It's just like when they modernized, even the 2002 version has more action and stuff
Yes.
in it than the 1960s version,
Yeah.
because it's a product of its time.
Yes.
No pun intended, but
Yeah.
a little pun.
Little fun.
But it is, you know what I'm saying? Of course, like anything else, anytime they remake a film, or it's always going to be kind of to fit the audience that's going to watch it.
Yes.
They didn't create the 2002 version because the people that watched it in 1960 or watched it in the
We're
1970s
clamoring or anything. Yeah.
were like saying that wasn't the audience they were going for. Okay?
Exactly.
They didn't, they were looking for a younger audience, just like Star Trek's trying to, they're modernizing it. As old farts don't like the new stuff because it's made for the newer generation. Whether it's good or bad is another show. But so we have to always take that into consideration when you're saying, "Oh, I don't like this film. I don't like the new one." But really, why is it you don't like it? Is it because you really think the original one is that much better, or is it just because you were first exposed to that, you fell in love with that version, and you have this kind of image in your head of what it is, when the reality is it's old, it's
old.
dated.
And
There's a lot of dated stuff in the 1960s. Like there's almost a few cringy parts
Yes.
in the 1960s.
Oh yeah, there are, because it's, yeah.
By
But as
today's
you just
standards.
mentioned, a whole bunch of Star Trek fans are learning that very lesson right now.
Yeah.
Well, all right, coming up.
So we're at the 8:00. So I mean,
Okay,
I don't know if we need to wrap this. I mean, to final thoughts. I think we finally gave you thoughts. I love both films. I don't think I have right this point. I have one that I like better than the other one. Honestly, I think I like them
I'm
both.
leaning slightly toward 1960, but only in the themes and the overall what he's saying about things. But 2002 is easy to watch. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, they're both
That's
great films. I just saying, all I'm saying to our audience, if you haven't seen the 2002 one, or maybe if you haven't seen it in a long time, maybe give it another watch. Try to watch it with more of an open mind, and not don't try to keep comparing it to the 1960 version.
Yes.
So, anyway, all
Coming
right. So what does Phil and Roy and everybody
Phil
else
and
got
Roy.
going on?
I'm only doing Phil and Roy tonight. I kind of gave up on Fez.
Fez hasn't done anything in over a year.
Hasn't done anything for a while. Roy, Phil. We do Phil first. Phil has Roy. Phil has Roy coming on, and Warren Friedrich coming on to promote their Space 1999 con in Calgary tomorrow. I believe in the 4:00 hour. I believe that's going to happen. And his buddies at Astra are going to be on at 3:00. And then Friday night, Phil will be playing. He will be replaying Paul Levinson's radio play, Real Life, if you guys want to check that out. Roy is going to have a very special Thursday night episode. He's going to do the 1960 science fiction horror film Village of the Damned. And then Friday night, he's going to try to get that Austin Powers ones that got rescheduled from whenever it was supposed to be last week. So I think Friday night he'll do Austin Powers.
He's doing a back-to-back.
He's doing back-to-back.
He's crazy, that one. Once a week's enough for me.
No. Here's the truth. Look, now Rizzo, let's call it like it is. Once a week's enough for our audience.
Well, for everybody. Nobody needs. I'm surprised that we get people watch every week to begin with.
What are we doing next week? Did we finally decide on one?
I think. Well, what do you guys think? You want us to do more? Keep on the time thing?
One more time thing to finish April.
Yeah, I was thinking. I'm thinking Final Countdown. What do you guys think of that?
How do you feel about?
I'll let that settle for a second because it takes. I know there's a delay. So is the Final Countdown? What was our other options?
Millennium
was the other one, and Looper. So out of those three, clearly I've only seen two out of those three.
Yeah, Chris LaRoche wants a clip show. I would love to put together a clip show, Chris, but that's a ton of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and I don't have time. I'm very busy at work.
Neither was our time where, yeah. Oh, Bill, what
Looper. I would have thought everybody would have jumped on the Final Countdown.
Yeah, I thought you guys would all be like,
Final Countdown.
No, Sue wants
another one. Chris LaRoche saying Final Countdown. They got two.
Martin wants Final Countdown.
Martin Final Countdown. Like Bill, I figured Final Countdown. I had a feeling it was going to be the more popular one.
Bill, you got outvoted. I'm sorry, but they do love.
She also loves Looper.
All right, we're going to 1980s meets Pearl Harbor, I guess.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I guess we'll do Final Countdown. We can always do the other ones at another time.
We will. It's not like we'll never do them.
No, it's
we've done this for 3 years.
Next week. So, all right. So
3 more years.
I don't know if we got an hour on the Final Countdown. We'll find out.
We'll talk about other things. And then coming up in May, I think we are going to tackle Picard.
Right. After that, we're going to do, May 3rd, we're going to do Picard season 1, 2, 3 all in one show.
And we might look at Mando, too.
We're going to look at Mando the week after that, I think.
All right,
so if you haven't watched those series, watch them.
Get them watched.
There's going to be spoiler-orama.
I am excited to talk about Picard because, damn.
Yeah. Picard, strap yourselves in, folks, because Picard's going to be a rough ride.
Show. There's a lot to talk about. Just in season 3
going to be a rough ride. So just don't, it's not going to be a love fest like it.
As Phil, I was talking to Phil Merkel today, and I was like, but people are loving season 3, and Star Trek needed the win. Like they needed that. They needed people to love it. And Phil was like, yeah, since season 1 and season 2 basically shit the bed.
Yeah, well, they haven't put out. I mean, they put. I shouldn't say, but Lower Decks is great, but a lot of people don't like it because it's not Star Trek. If I hear that one more time, I'm like, no, it's
Lower Decks is very much Star Trek.
Star Trek. It's just poking fun at itself. How many
times have I said you have to know Star Trek?
Yeah, to me. If there's a fan service show, it's Lower Decks.
Can you imagine if Mike McMahon and Terry Matalas got together and did a show? It would be
well. I mean, I'm
unreal.
Curious to see how. Remember, they're going to do the crossover between Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks. I don't know how they're going to do it.
It's going to be live action. It'll be actually Tawny New.
Yeah, I know, but it's just the two different eras are 100 years apart or more.
It's science fiction. We just
I know. I'm curious to see how they're going to do it. I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm curious as to how they're going to do it.
See.
We will find out.
It better be a comedy episode because I want to.
I'm sure it will. You cannot have that one be serious.
You can't have those two run around on the Enterprise.
It's going to be like the Discovery Tribble short.
Maybe it'll be actually set in Lower Decks era, and this is remember how at the end of Enterprise,
it'd be like a holodeck thing.
Riker and Deanna Troi.
It would be like a holodeck thing. Yeah, that would be funny. They could get away with that. Yeah. That might be funny.
Get a life. Jeff just told us to get a life. All right, kids. With that,
get a life. What's our life? We have lives.
That's madness.
Anyway, all right, folks. Yeah, after 8:00, time for some Mando. I'm so excited. I can't wait till Ahsoka. I'm just so excited. I'm so excited. I know. I still get excited about this stuff. Isn't that funny? 56
it's
years
good.
old and still a
No,
Star
it
Wars.
reminds you you're still
Still a
alive.
10-year-old kid
You
watching
still have
Star Wars.
imagination and you're not dead yet. That's really all
Yeah.
I ask for.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you next week with the final countdown. Until then, live long and prosper.
Bye, guys.
Good night.